Welcome to TiffDoesLoans Podcast. Today I'm streaming with investor Tate Siemer. How are you?
Great, Tiff. So good to be here. Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
me.
Thank you for coming. We met through some mutual investors or just like partners.
Yep.
And I just love the deals you had sent over. You focus on syndication. So I definitely, and in Ohio, which is huge from like out here in California, we have so many investors that are venturing out into new projects, bigger projects, really trying to find the right niche that's outside of California. Just as you know, the numbers just aren't quite making as much sense as they do in other areas. So thank you so much for joining us. And why don't you just kind of get started and tell us like how you got into real estate and kind of how that journey started?
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So for listeners, viewers, this is actually an international show. I'm on the Pacific coast of Mexico right now, a little town called Sayulita, where I've been living the last year. I've been in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah for the last 25 years, but I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. So I went to high school and college in Ohio. Basically, just to cut to the chase, I mean, you were talking about, the California investors or other investors looking for other options. I really feel like the last bastion of affordability, and that's not even I'm borrowing that term, and I'm not sure from who, or I would give them credit, but the last bastion of affordability in our country is that middle Midwest.
Yep.
And so you're talking about the Cincinnati's where I'm from. Indianapolis, Louisville, Lexington, Columbus, Ohio, which is our primary, actually our only market, and we'll come back to that one. Kansas City, St. Louis, and then outside of some of those major cities, there's tertiary markets and college markets and that sort of thing. Dayton, Ohio is a good one. You get up, like it's very sensitive. It's just like, all politics is local, all real estate's local. We don't look at anything north of Columbus, Ohio, like nothing at all. So Toledo's out, Cleveland's out, Southern Michigan's out. I love Michigan. My family has a place way up north on Lake Michigan, but
and why would those be out?
Right. Okay.
Is there something specific? Yeah.
So Tiff, if you think about it, when you're investing in so specifically, we invest in commercial multifamily properties, typically these days, 80, 100 units and up from there. And this can be true of any asset class, but when you're looking at real estate markets, typically you're either looking at an appreciation market, like a growth market,
or you're looking California. Yeah.
Right. Perfect example. Salt Lake City, another perfect example.
Yeah.
Or you're looking at Austin, Texas, another perfect example.
Yeah.
Or you're looking at a cash flow market, right? So cash flow markets are like, Cleveland's a really good cash flow market, great affordability. Just because I know these two, Toledo's another good one. And obviously the more affordable, typically on the purchase price, I mean, especially if you're in Class C, Class B properties, your rents are gonna do fine as long as you have, the population metrics that you want. That said, when we got into the business in 2019, 2020, coming from the single family investing world, so I think maybe that might resonate with some of your listeners. We made the switch. We went from flipping single family houses in Salt Lake City to we did a 12 unit, a 20 unit, and then we got into our 70 unit and then 179 units, and then off from there 60 units, et cetera, et cetera. Wow. So we insisted on finding what I call a unicorn market, which is a market that captures affordability, which means cash flow, which means we can pay passive investors that invest in our properties an ongoing return because the property produces enough cash flow and is affordable enough going in that we can produce a return and is going to increase in value, which means that when we model our holds typically 3 to 5 years. So, if we're holding a property 5 years, we're underwriting a projected amount of growth in income, which is how commercial properties are valuated, which is a really key feature. Like that's, it's one of the things kind of when you get your head around, it's actually a really exciting aspect of commercial real estate is you boost your net operating income by either increasing rents, increasing revenue somehow, decreasing expenses somehow, refinancing, like all of a sudden, well, refinancing's not that, take that one out, but all of a sudden you've just increased the value of the property. You go into a 200 unit apartment community and you raise the rents even $50 a unit, right? So nothing that's gonna really
be a lot. Not going to really affect the tenants. To you, it adds up.
And a lot of times properties are way behind on rent increases. They're just not up to market, right? And that for the good of the community and the investors and everybody, we invest in high income areas, submarkets of Columbus, Ohio, that have really good how it grows median household income. So, so anyway, Columbus, Ohio, at the time, this was 2019, 2020. We loved. It was actually suggested to us by a mentor and a guru in the space named Neil Bawa, BAWA. I highly recommend looking him up. He's got multifamilyu.com. The letter U that's a wealth of webinars and free educational materials. He does a very bold webinar every year where he kind of picks his market for the next year that he's excited about. And that year it happened to be Columbus. And it made a lot of sense for us because, my family is still in Cincinnati, which is 2 hours away, hour and a half away. I have very good friends in college, people that I know from college and in high school. Got one guy I went to preschool with as a commercial broker in Columbus. So my dad went to dental school.
Aligned.
Yeah. So, but this is what's important. That's kind of all just circumstantial. The key about Columbus is it's got an incredibly diversified employment base that's really vibrant. It's got super strong institutional based economic drivers. So you've got Ohio State University, which is the third largest school in the country, 66,000 students. And that's kind of sitting right on top of the Ohio State government infrastructure, which is, the capital of Columbus and all of the infrastructure that goes along with that. And then you've got a few Fortune 500 companies headquartered there. You've got research hospitals all over kind of the downtown area. All of this is in a really Ohio State is kind of juxtaposed with downtown. So there's a really strong cultural center. There's there's an area called the Arena District that's got beautiful sports stadiums and NHL team and blah, blah, blah. People love living in Columbus. Was another key factor for us. People go to Ohio State and they stay. They love their Buckeyes and they love
growing too.
Right?
Or building.
So, constantly building, constantly growing. So you look at population growth, right? You look at we look at income growth. We look at sub-market gross median household incomes. Columbus as a whole is about the same as the national gross median household income, but there's properties, one of which is one of the ones you looked at, Tiffany, is there's properties that we've underwritten that are in $130,000 a year annual household income ranges. So it's kind of this weird thing where it's like the retail center of the country. So like the limited brands, Victoria's Secret, Bed Bath Beyond, Abercrombie Fitch, all headquartered there together. And just all those factors together, and then you're just looking at metrics, right? Like growth and all that stuff. It's the unicorn market.
This works. Yeah.
Right.
I love the unicorn market.
And the key is affordability. And this is one of the things I still just adore about Columbus is that it is very affordable. Especially when you throw in some of the levels of income around the market. And this is where it kind of gets like a little mind blowing. In 2022, Congress passed the CHIPS Act. Biden signed it, and that was a congressional act that mandated the development of technology, specifically microchips. Were one of the heavy focuses. As a result of that, and a lot of that was funding, right? Congress is funding, helping fund projects, and that was in response to the global microchip shortage that we're primarily dependent on Taiwan for. Like 90+% of the AI-based chips come from Taiwan. Within a couple months of that, Intel announced that they were building a $20 billion microchip factory in the northeast suburb of Columbus called New Albany, which we were under contract on a property called 43 at New Albany, 43 Class A units at New Albany that we now own. We were under contract on that property a couple miles from this center. This is a factory that's creating 10,000 new jobs.
Wow.
And
they're all going to need housing. They're probably
all going to need housing, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. So what happens from there is that all these other tech companies, small support companies, Amazon data center, Honda EV, there's this military drone component company that's even bigger than Intel. They've all come. Basically, you put something like that in place, and it creates this whole new epicenter. And so it was cornfields 2 years ago. They broke ground 2 years ago on this thing. Is now these multi-billion. Intel's now $29 billion, not just 20. Wow. And so that was just icing on the cake. So now we've got the story in Columbus to tell that starts to look a little bit like Austin, Texas, 20 years ago. And so I couldn't be more excited about Columbus. I couldn't be more bullish about Columbus. We our buy box there is basically like 10-year and newer multifamily properties. We'll look at as old as like 2000 and newer, but we're really, really preferential to newer product. We cut our teeth on Class C distressed, Class C minus distress, like heavy CapEx projects, heavy construction, remodels, business models that required remodels to reposition the income levels, stuff like that. And we learned that it was kind of, there's a learning curve, especially in the Class C space, that can be kind of painful. Property management is pretty key. Rough in that space and very, very key. Yeah. No matter what property you're talking about, your management is extremely key. I've had conversations many times on my own podcast about self-management versus third-party management. I think when you're talking about 80, 100 unit buildings, that the reason we go to that scale, amongst other reasons, is that we can bring in a full-time leasing agent, a full-time maintenance person, and make that make sense inside the numbers at that scale. So we have employed the third-party management system. So we do what we call asset management, which is meeting all the time with property managers and implementing business plans. So I guess just to kind of round out the conversation on markets, number one, I just know Columbus now after 5-6 years of owning there, 5 years, that I feel like I would be doing my company and my investors and even my residents, like everybody that I work with, a disservice by like getting outside of that lane. Because I have a sense of like, not mastery, but we made a lot
more success there. That was going to be my next question. From now that you're 5 years in, and you were thinking, Columbus is like a unicorn market. Is that still the only, like, do you still feel that way? And it seems like you do about that market. But also because of all this growth that's going on that they're building with all the big companies, Has that affected your like affordability at all? Because like have the prices gone
Good
up? Like
question.
anything happens over here, you know, and like
Really good
everything
question.
skyrockets. Or even
Yep.
Texas. Texas is a great example
Yep.
from especially after the pandemic.
Yep.
A lot of California started moving to Texas,
Yep.
and literally I saw their like I was when I
Prices go
first
up.
got into
Yep.
loans, I was qualifying people for like 250, maybe 300, and within like a year and a half, 2 years, it's like they needed 450, 500. So
Yep.
it would be more
That
of the
happened in Salt
average.
Lake
So
City
that
too.
definitely skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Do you see that happening at all there? Is it still within those bounds of like affordable?
Yeah, right now it's still very affordable.
Okay.
In fact, we haven't really seen the upward pressure on our own rents at, like, say, that new Albany property.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it makes sense. I mean, they broke ground on the factory 2 years ago. I think it's scheduled to come online in a year and a half. So it's going to be this ramp up, and then employees will need
We'll need
housing,
housing.
and,
Yeah.
and demand will increase. Development obviously around there has increased, so you've got new product coming on the market as well that you got to figure in. But the last I heard, Columbus needs about 17,000 new units a year to kind of keep up with current demand, and that's kind of without factoring in these huge employers. And they're only doing like 8,000 or 9,000 a year, even in a kind of a big year, a big push year. And next year is supposed to be even worse. But in the immediate, our rents have been kind of pretty much flat for a year and a half. So yeah. So to answer your question, and I've seen happen under my nose in Salt Lake City when we were in the single family space, where the average home price went from 200, 250 to 450 to eventually above 600. And now it's back around, I think, in the mid fives or low fives. And it was the same thing. It was a lot of California money and people coming from other
And
places.
investors.
Yeah, they'll sell a $3 million house in Cali and come to Utah, and for 800 grand, they'll get an acre in a incredibly beautiful subdivision with mountains behind them and horse, 3-car garage, and they don't care if they have to outbid the next person by 100 grand or whatever and drive the pricing up. That's just like supply and demand.
I mean, if you could do it, if you're, I mean, and most do that, or they'll sell their investment over here. Or I know like 1031, exchanges, they could get rid of their investments over here, and they can do multiple, they're like, oh, I'm going to go buy like 16 properties, like just transfer it.
Or one property. It's like, it kind of doesn't matter in terms of like tax code and what the IRS sees. By the way, if anybody needs help ever with 1031 placement, we often have opportunities for that. We work with 1031 exchanges fairly frequently inside of our deals. So
and I feel like those are I still feel like we're a little paused because of like coming off the election year. There's still a lot of even experienced investors, first time home buyers, like just all of it, that are just still a tad paused. And I think it's going to be like that for, just so everybody could kind of like what's going on, get a focus. But I do feel in the next few months here that there's going to be a lot of moves being made. So
I think, the elephant in the room, Tiff, I'd be curious to see if you agree with this. I think you will. But I mean, to me, the elephant in the room in that conversation is obviously interest rates.
Yeah.
And like the amount, in the commercial space, we went from borrowing at less than 3%. On bank debt, agency debt,
10?
Freddie, Fannie, etc. No, we didn't go to 10. We went to like 7.
Okay. We did talk about that.
And like we're in the mid sixes right now. And I mean, when you increase the cost of capital that much industry wide, it has really direct effects that were huge, and it has really indirect effects that were huge, like say on the equity markets, or, private equity, for instance, and their appetite and their mood for deploying capital into deals like ours. And then the more private, like what we call retail level passive investor, which we have in our deals as well, or also known as limited partners or LPs. Those are typically anywhere from like a $50,000 investment to like $250,000 investment, somewhere in there. And that's what syndication is. You hear the term, and that's what we do. We syndicate deals. So syndicate means bring together. So we're bringing together a pool of passive investment funds, and that is a group that has their own LLC, and they own usually 70% of our property. Like, so, we do a 70-30 split with them, sometimes 80-20, sometimes 60-40. And then they also get paid a preferred return on their investment, which is usually 7 or 8%. And that's always accruing throughout, like, say, a 5-year hold. You're always like, that's always accruing. It's not necessarily always getting paid. And that's kind of the reality of like the cash flow scenarios of some of these properties. It's dependent on cash flow. So if it doesn't get paid, it accrues, and gets paid off when possible, which is usually a capital event at the end of the ownership period. But that the interest rate environment it's just incredible volatility amongst other things. I mean, we went.
It's going down. That's so good news. We're trickling.
It's very slowly going down.
Yeah, it's slowly
in our space. We've seen we're finally starting to see a little bit of relief off the Treasury, which is really determining
what we need.
In the commercial space. But I mean, the last 3 months, it's been really bad. Like the Treasury's gone up, interest rates have stayed high. What the Fed does when they cut interest rates often has no effect on like our mortgage interest rates.
It really doesn't. And people think it's tough too, because I've been trying to prepare people earlier and trying to, like, right now I'm doing, a lot of follow-up to get people's goals so I can get them, because even when they, when the feds cut, it's like, it's still not like, most of the lenders, like if they anticipate that cut, that's already baked in with the lower cut. So you actually want to get in right before, because what we saw last time in September, they actually cut more and then the Fed cut a little less. So our rates actually went higher when everybody thought that it was the time. So right now it's like it's fluctuating so much. Like I've popped in there and look at pricing, and an hour later it's like, oh my gosh, it's like another $2,000. Oh my gosh. So it's like just fluctuating. And my biggest advice to most is like, pick your team, whoever you're like looking to invest with. If you're looking to shop or purchase or refinance, it's like, get everything ready, get with the lenders, get all your information out there, because it's just fluctuating so much. When the window is there, you want to be ready. And that's basically I think where we're at. Like,
I would agree. And I am just not a believer at all in trying to time markets, especially in real estate, because you don't really have to. And in real estate, I would make the argument that no matter what market you're in physically or what market cycle you're in, whether it's a growth cycle, neutral cycle, or crash cycle, there are always deals to be found
100%
and bought and executed and done and profited from. I would submit, because I've done it in different markets, and I know that. That said, and I think this is like really, really important for your listeners, and I'm take it for what it's worth. I'm a syndicator. This is what I do. But I think right now is 100% go time on acquisitions. Like I think it's the absolute best buying window that we're going to see in the next 10 years. And guess what happens when we all get our wish and interest rates go down?
The prices are going to shoot up.
100%. And it's not just that. It's not just because it's not just the natural like fluctuation that, you know, your cost of money goes down so you can buy more. It's that there's trillions of dollars of private equity sitting on the sidelines right now that's waiting to pounce. Yeah. And they start to see that cycle go where interest rates start to significantly come down and cap rates start to compress, which means prices go up.
Yep.
And you if you don't know the whole capitalization rate equation and how that is a determining factor in pricing, it's definitely something to learn when you get into commercial. But so basically, if you have a small cap rate, your prices are high, cap rates go up, they decompress, prices go down, and interest rates have a very direct effect on cap rates, especially over the long term. So if we get it, if interest rates drop 1.5 points and they stay that low for 6 months,
that's what I want.
Yeah, but guess what? Pricing's gonna like in every single market, but in high demand markets, especially, pricing will go right back up. The Salt Lake Cities of the world will go right back up. The hot multifamily markets that quite frankly are generally too pricey for us to be able to pay our investors the preferred return. But like the Phoenixes, Austin's one, a lot of the Texas markets, Florida, a lot of the Florida markets, and I can't even speak like the California scene. Like I have never spent a second of time. Yeah, I have never.
I feel like it's definitely going to be more experienced.
Yeah, it's just never. Nobody ever in our space, like the mentors, the thought leaders, the authors, speakers, like you never hear people strategically talk about investing in California real estate.
I feel like California. Well, the fix and flip
can I just say something real quick?
Yeah, like the fix and flip is super hot out here. Like you could, because of the prices being so high, if you like master the fix and flipping out here, I know a lot of people that are doing the fix and flips out here, but wholesaling in other areas and getting like, cash flow somewhere else. But yeah, when it comes to the multi-investing, Arizona, Texas, and Ohio,
the Sun Belt, I mean, the hot markets in commercial multifamily, and which are apartments, right, are the Sun Belt, Carolinas, that whole area.
Carolinas are picking up, yeah.
Oh, Carolinas,
but I see smaller investors more there, like North Carolina. Like I see,
there's big build to rent stuff going in. Like it's as big a like commercial multifam market. Really is there. I mean, it's comparable to Florida. Like both Carolinas are, and Tennessee, huge growth state.
That one's huge now. Yeah.
But I mean, to your point about fixing and flipping in California, it kind of makes my point that I was making earlier about like, especially if you're talking about flipping in a static market where you don't have price fluctuation, you can always buy for Y, fix up for X, and sell for Z, right? And in any market, whether it's $1 million property, $3 million property, $500,000 property, like that model works. And all you got to do is just pound the pavement enough, or know the right people, or have good deal sourcing. Right. And that's a conversation that I think would be really good to have at some point is the importance of just being a great deal sourcer. That's kind of my superpower, I think. But yeah, so back to the buying window thing, because I just think that this is like too important to gloss over for anybody that's listening. And there's a lot of different lanes in real estate, right? And I love the multifamily lane for a lot of reasons. Cash flow, ongoing cash flow, equity growth, wealth building, net worth growth, right? And then tax advantages are huge. You get those if you're doing the right deals in the right asset classes. You'll get those in other commercial, like say storage units or mobile home parks, or there's other ways to do that. I do believe in multifamily. It's apartments, especially like B class apartments, which is what we buy. So class B is like, not ritzy, not like luxury, but also nice with pools and stuff, stuff like that. That's always going to be needed. And if you're buying like good, affordable level class B stuff, I think it's a very stable asset class, and that's proven to be true.
Do you guys fix them at all? Or do you
Yeah.
find them like ready to go? Like, what's the vacancy at that you kind of look for when you're looking for a deal?
Yeah. So we've got like kind of two different models that we've done. One is where we really started with what we call the value add model, or what people call the value add model, where you find a distressed property that has low vacancy. And so you're talking, our first 12 unit was, and 12's kind of a different scale, but like for the sake of this conversation, it was half occupied. So we had 6 apartments occupied. The other 6 were vacant. The 6 that were occupied were month to month. So we just politely didn't renew. We vacated the whole building. We brought in a construction crew. We did every single last little thing, from windows to mechanicals to
get
roofs.
The higher rents. Yeah. And that's,
we did. Yeah. It was a blitz of it was a huge construction project. We doubled rents and, doubled or tripled the value of the property. Maybe not tripled, but yeah.
How long does that usually take? So, I mean, I'm sure.
That's a very, I got to say that was our first one, kind of fell in our lap. We didn't know what we were doing. And it's very different than how we do now, what we do now.
So how do you do it now?
So that, to answer your question on that, that took about, 10 months, something like that. It probably took longer than it should have. Yeah. Quite frankly.
Well, you got to learn,
Well, and it's a lot of that.
Be hard on yourself.
Really when you hire a construction company for a project like that, you're kind of at their mercy in a lot of ways. You'd rather not be, but that's kind of the reality.
Do you have a construction team now do you have, like, now you're like 5 years in. So do you have your go-to like construction and boots on the ground, like all your project management? So now things, I'm sure, smooth, that's a part of investing though. You got to get through that, and you got to find the right people. Just like in any industry or life, you just you got to keep trying until you find the right crew and the right people, and then it runs smoother. So
we run, we have really good property management companies that run our properties. And so we typically are having them source maintenance and remodel type projects, and just general contractor type jobs. If we're taking over a place that has a very large capex, capital expenditure need and budget and plan, we'll get involved in who's doing that work for sure. And to answer your question, that this is another reason why you pick a market and you become an expert in it and you stay in that lane. To that, and you have to know the nuances of the market, like the sub-markets and the demographics and economics, but you also have to know the who's who of, like, in the industry, who the property management companies are, who the class A property management companies are versus the class C's, who can handle 100 and, who can handle a 250 unit, who's better off for 100 units, right? Like little stuff like that. Our legal team is in Ohio. Our primary legal team's in Ohio. Like, just kind of, you just get set up in that market. So and one of the things I was going to say earlier, we talked about kind of that greater middle Midwest. I'll just say this for what it's worth to any listener or you. Cincinnati and Indianapolis are very exciting markets to me. They don't have the tech thing, like they're calling that tech thing in Columbus, they're calling it the Silicon Heartland. So in Utah we've got the Silicon Slopes, and obviously there's Silicon Valley. Now in Ohio there's Silicon Heartland, and I don't know, Austin has one too, I think. But so Cincinnati and Indy don't have that, but in almost in some really kind of primary key other ways, they're very similar cities, and they're 2 hours from us. So if we were going to look at other deals, those are the markets that we would look at. But we've got, back to the whole deal sourcing thing I mentioned a bit ago. We've got just really great lines on institutional grade assets that, investors own, that they've completed some sort of business plan on. They're ready to dispose. They're ready to trade.
Yeah.
We will go find the best of those and go after them. Yeah.
And Tate, so you also coach for everybody. So you coach for multi-investing and help men in entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah. Yeah. So listeners can check out multifamilyoctane.com.
I'll have it
just
below.
like it sounds. Yeah. I am a mentor and coach for aspiring commercial multifamily investors that you want to syndicate and kind of be the lead sponsor is what we call our role. And that just means you're finding the deal, you're putting the team together, you're doing all the things, right? When there's a lot to do. And if you're going to do anything well in real estate, I'll just say this: mentorship, in my opinion, coaching, a paid coach is like a must. And I'm not saying that, I'm saying that as somebody that's paid a lot for coaching over the years. And when I decided to go into larger, when we went from our 12 unit to our 179 unit in the course of like 12 months, I had a mentor and a coach through that whole thing, like telling me what to do, telling me what to look out for, which gave me the confidence I needed to go after something that big, right? I wouldn't have had that without my mentor. You're talking about not only buying multi-million-dollar properties, but investing usually millions of private investors' life savings in these projects. And so you got to do it right. And if, so in my opinion, like, you go find the biggest, baddest, like, coach that you feel the most confident about and resonate the most with and enjoy the most. I think that's super key. But also just have a lot of confidence in their track record and kind of how they do what they do. Right. And that's relatively easy to get. Like with me, I've got a podcast with 260 episodes. You can get a really good feel for us and
what's the name?
The Apartment Gurus.
Okay.
Apartment Gurus and Apartment Gurus podcast. And it's 5 years old, but so I offer basically I train people how to do it the way that I do it. And we have, for some reason, I always get men. Like, I've always just coached men in the 3 years that I've been coaching. That's not by design in the multifamily space, but I do also coach, and this is a newer thing that I'm kind of launching right now. Just entrepreneurial men that maybe are stuck in a corporate job or are stuck in a entrepreneurial path that's not necessarily being very successful for them. And just helping them level up and like get to a point in life that they're just loving the life that they're living. Like, that's kind of like, I have a real true passion for people like loving life, because I think it's such a rare, precious gift that we have to be alive, to be human beings, and the opportunity to be self-determining around the quality of our life, the quality of our inner state, the quality of our inner peace, our spirituality, our relationships, our businesses, our communities, like, and the impact that we can have as men. I do focus on, in that respect, on like training and working with men that are up to really big things, that want to make a huge impact and be the right kind of man in today's world, which I think there's a huge shortage of.
Yeah, that is amazing. Thank you for doing that. And it's really important, like, just on the entrepreneur side, like, it is not easy when, you start running with this dream, and then it's like a couple years in and you're like, okay, I'm not in my dream life yet. Like, what's going on?
Like being an entrepreneur,
and you're building a foundation. So it takes time. And, I always think there was a good quote, but you're building a business is easy. It's building the person who's willing to do it, which is the hard part. And I seen that, and I just related so much to that. It really is like laying a foundation, but really building, investing in yourself and having, that guidance from somebody else, especially like I pretty much have a mentor, like my broker, like helps me, especially on those hard days where you're like, what am I doing? Am I going the right way? And I think that's incredible. We definitely need more of that. So
I mean,
I will have all of that below.
Like Tiger Woods had 5 different coaches at one of the points in his greatness career, right? Like, and he was a better golfer than all 5 of them. Yeah. But the role that they played in observing him, giving him feedback, training, making suggestions, et cetera, arguably they might have screwed his swing up, ironically. But like the best of the best have, Tony Robbins has, I don't know that for a fact, but I almost guarantee you
they do.
That he's got a coach, and CEOs, like, you don't get to that point without either the gift of like somebody just taking you under their wing, but more likely like you going out and finding who you want to learn from and making it happen. Like I cannot emphasize that enough. And if there's a part of your life, I kind of think of like the 7 different areas of life: physical, recreational, relational, et cetera, et cetera. Like if there's a part of your life that's like significantly dissatisfying consistently to you, or worse, maybe a few of those parts of your lives, like, go hire a coach. Like you can work with a coach for 8 weeks, 6 months, a year, and where you can get like, and I'll just say this, and maybe this is a kind of a good place to maybe start to wrap up, but like people say like the mindset thing in our game and entrepreneurship in general is like 80% of the game. Like I think it's more than that. I really do. Like I argue, but here's what I mean. Like, if in your heart of hearts, at the core of your soul, believe that you can do something, there is nothing other than you quitting and not doing it. There's nothing that you can't do. Like, or there's no way. I'll say this: there's no way that particular thing's not going to get done, in my opinion, unless you're just delusional and I can fly kind of thing.
Yeah.
But and conversely, if there's any real significant, and I think we all have constraints and we all have limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome. Like, I would again contend all of the best of the greats all have had that. Jesus had that, I think. Like, and so, but like, if there's a major hang up inside of you that like has you doubting with any significance that you can do something, it's going to be almost impossible to make that happen. And so to me, that it's an inside job largely. Like, there's certainly points where you need luck and you get lucky, and sometimes you don't get lucky, and sometimes it's that serendipitous like introduction, or you meet somebody at a conference, or a phone call, or like how you and I connected, Tiff, like just kind of people we knew, and trying to make deals happen, but who you are, and you made a great point earlier about like businesses being easy to grow or start. I forget how you said it, but being the person to
you have to become the person. It's all about becoming. Like, that's what I'm starting to realize.
And to me, like,
you're spiritual, it's already yours, but it's like you have to, like, I've been on a spiritual journey as well as I need to kick ass type journey too. Like, my relentless, I can't give up journey. So sometimes they kind of like, okay, wait, I'm too soft today. Like, I need to be, so like trying to kind of build that, but I still feel like this whole thing, I've had my own business now for almost 2 years, but it's been more about me becoming and tackling those limiting beliefs and I've been on a journey within for like 3 years at this point. So like I agree with everything that you're saying. And I've done the work, but and I've done the calls and I've done the events and I do that, but ultimately my business, it's who I'm becoming. Like I keep moving a little forward, you know, and things are like right now I'm focusing on grounding myself in my efforts and not the result. And like as an entrepreneur, I think that's something that I've been really trying to ground myself in over the past couple of weeks. That usually I go through like a process, but every season or something, I'll try to, you know, kind of focus on one thing. And right now it's, I need to stop focusing on those results. So I think as an entrepreneur,
you get to stop focusing on the results, right?
Yeah, I get to, I've changed the words.
I have so subtle. It's subtle, but it's like, it's the whole, again, Tony Robbins, the you know, life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. And a lot of times that's just like shifting that languaging a little bit, like not I have to go, you know, to work today, but I get to go to work today. Wow, what a huge pivot.
Well, because you start, when you say you get to, it's you're putting yourself in the state of gratitude, rather than like, oh, I have to go. And you know, just like even people in real estate and everything, I know a lot of industries have been tough. Don't get me wrong, but these last 5 years for everybody, there's been so many things that have been happening that are out of our control. You know, things just all around us, so many changes. And, you know, but I feel like that's why it's finally, you know, in these past 5 years too, this like mental health and everything has been, you know, that industry was nothing and now it's everything. So like a couple, you know, maybe in the past 5 to 8 years, or, you know, it started building, but really over these, I don't know, maybe COVID really kicked that up a notch because everybody was stuck at home. But I think that's, you have to work on the mind in order to, you know,
it's like you got to start there. Like it is foundational. Like when I start with my coaching clients, we start on mindset, like it's kind of a full frontal assault on limiting beliefs and creating a vision. And you know, we do work with goals, but not as much as you might think. But really like getting into like clearing the deck so that you can create what you want to create. Tiffany, have you heard of 75 Hard? Do you know what that is?
Yes. Where you do technically, I never really did that. Just it didn't.
I didn't either. I'm going to cite
it. You work out 2 times. Yeah, you work out. Like
it's 75 days. You work out twice a day. Both workouts have to be outside. You have to drink a gallon of water. You have to read for 10 minutes or something like that. And you have to take a picture every single day. I think that's it. There might be 1 or 2 other, and like haven't done it. I make promises that I can keep, and that's not one that really jazzed me up at all. Like I didn't see.
Yeah, it doesn't really fit. It didn't really fit with me.
Yeah, what I've heard and this is to your point. What I've heard people say about 75 Hard is it's not so much like what you're doing or the results that you're getting. It's who you have to become to complete something like that. And you know, I think running a marathon is probably another really good example. Certainly starting
that's why I didn't really do that. But
so certainly starting any business, first of all, like this is a very long game that you got to be ready to play. Like you know, Simon Sinek wrote The Infinite Game.
Yeah,
pretty sure that was him. And that this is kind of an infinite game. I mean, you're ideally what you're doing is you're creating a business that calls forth from you the kind of person that you really want to be. Mm-hmm. And if you're wondering who that is, go out and just look at the people in your industry or in other industries or in business or in entrepreneurship or whatever that you admire, that you see them living a life that you would like to live. They're joyful. They're strong. They're impactful. They're secure. They know who they are.
Mhm.
Like all of those things. And like, and look at like, okay. And those models, like those mentors, those mentors from afar, even like they'll give you clues to like kind of, who you want to become, and then creating a life, a business. Like, if you're an entrepreneur, you're creating a huge part of your
Basically
life.
building the life that you want.
Yeah.
It's not just a career. It's like all of it. And I feel like nowadays, so that's pretty much what I did. I didn't do the 75 hard, but in 22, I started like my journey within is what I call it. But I pretty much had transformed my life in 3+ years. But I started making contracts to myself. I started reading a lot of audiobooks. I've done like over 100 self-help books, but cool. I started making contracts to myself. So that helped me kind of become this person. Like I no longer drink. I'm over a year sober, like things like that were holding me back. I slowly started to like take them out, like limit things, take them out. And I signed contracts to myself every 3 months and, and then I started my business and stuff like that. So I feel like 75 hard, it's the same concept. It puts you in the uncomfortable state. So whatever works for you, like that worked for me. Some people are more like accountability. They have to have like a coach or a partner or somebody to hold them. So I feel like at first, if you don't know how, first you got to find that. And
well, first, in my opinion, first you got to find a mentor. Like, and that can come at 1 of 2 points. That can come when you have no idea what you're doing next, or it can come when you have a really good idea of what you're doing next. So like people that I mentor pretty much know they're in real estate. They pretty much know they like want to like do multifamily. They know me from the industry. Or the other client type that I work with are, people that are guys that are in their 40s, maybe 50s, stuck in a corporate job that just
want to start over.
Well, and this is like a super key point for me. Like, in my opinion, this is grossly overgeneralization, but there's basically 2 mentalities in business. Mm-hmm. There's an employee mentality and there's an owner mentality, and neither is better or worse than the other. And you kind of are what you are, in my opinion. Those of us that are naturally wired owners, like, can't do it the other way. Like it would just like it would just like wreck us.
Just feel miserable. Yeah.
And employees like like somebody like me, I need great people around me on my team, and those are like, so everybody's of equal value in my opinion, and there's no better or worse. But like, and I would say that like there probably are very many examples of people going from like an employee learning a business maybe through their job, and then like, hey, I can maybe do this, and then starting their own thing and discovering that maybe they're more entrepreneurial than they realize. But to listeners, like you know who you are, and trust yourself. And likely, if you're listening to this, you're probably more in the owner mentality, the entrepreneurial mentality, and I would just encourage, once this, whether you stop this podcast now, hit pause and like do a LinkedIn search for coaches, or Instagram search for coaches in your industry, or life coaches, or sobriety coaches, or whatever it is that you feel like you need. Like that level, like investing in yourself at that level it's just absolutely
the best gift.
Well said. That's probably the best way to say it. It's a gift.
I mean, it's like at this point, it's like you just need to commit. I just tell people like once you commit to yourself, it's
and commit by writing a check. Go find a really great badass experienced coach that's charging $20,000 a year, 30 or whatever, or find a mastermind that's $25,000 or $50,000 a year, like, and put yourself in the right rooms with the right people. Like, you think that's not going to pay off? I mean, like, that pays off. I promise. Like, you get 10x ROI out of that, like, pretty fast.
Because then you also have the connections on top of everything else.
Yeah, people that work with me, they have my whole Rolodex, if you will.
I
Like,
love that.
everybody that I use for all my stuff, and
Yep.
those are typically tried and true. Like, our legal team is second to none. Like, so so when you hire a coach, you're leveraging. This is the key, and this is the key in business, right? Is leverage, right? Like,
Yep.
your leverage points are your power points that like are force multipliers, and a coach is a force multiplier in that you're leveraging their experience, you're leveraging their mistakes, which is part of their experience, you're leveraging their network, you're leveraging their mindset, you're leveraging their confidence, and ideally they're a coach that takes a huge amount of interest in you and will only work with you if they are confident in you from the beginning that you have what
Yep.
it takes to do this. And
They'll
so
see if you commit to yourself.
yeah.
You know,
So you're leveraging.
they basically make you commit to yourself before they commit to you, I feel like, is really how it should be.
Yeah, I think it's everybody's got to be 100% on board, because a coach can do a lot of things, but they
Yep.
can't do
You
the
can't do the
things.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And they can't be with you 24/7. So
right.
you have to, they're there to guide and to show you that it's possible and
Yeah.
to change that mindset. And, but they always say like optimism and things like that, they are contagious, just like negativity is. You have two sides of everything, positivity and negativity. Like each way you can make a choice which one to lean into. So by putting somebody like that in your life. Yeah, I feel like it's super important. And so, Tate, everybody, I'm going to have everything below here. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us and for coaching and for helping our entrepreneurs out there. Also, all over the Ohio, Columbus multi-investing market. So I'm going to have
real quick, if I
below.
could just there's kind of two ways of following up working with me. If you're at all interested, investwithgreenlight.com. You can learn all about passive investing opportunities in our deals, kind of the deals that we do, our portfolio. You can find all of our contact info there, of course. We have a really cool downloadable AI process for analyzing deals and contracts. And then multifamilyoctane.com for coaching and mentoring. And then Apartment Gurus, I'll mention that too, on all podcast forums and YouTube.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll put the links below too. But if this was helpful, feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe. And Tate, thank you again so much for coming.
Thanks, Tiffany. Bye. I loved it.